Look, we live in a world that honestly just cannot stop screaming for attention, right? Everywhere you look, people are broadcasting their every move, fighting for the spotlight, and literally begging for validation. But hiding right in plain sight is a completely different breed of person, a highly misunderstood, incredibly powerful personality type known as the dark horse. These are the silent high achievers. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the fascinating psychology behind the people who secretly build empires without ever needing an audience. Grab a notepad, because by the time you realize a silent achiever is competing with you, well, it's usually already over.
Our modern society is basically obsessed with what we call the loud alphas. You know exactly the type, flexing on social media, loudly broadcasting every minor win, constantly seeking external validation just to prove they exist. But dark horses, they operate on an entirely different wavelength. They're quiet. They're just relentlessly executing. While everyone else is busy talking and posturing, the silent achiever is busy positioning themselves to win. It's like they're that quiet coworker who suddenly lands the massive promotion, or that perfectly average-seeming friend who, surprise, secretly built a highly profitable business right in their bedroom. They don't need the applause, they literally just want the results.
All right, Section 1, Forged in Early Isolation.
So how does someone actually develop this formidable psychological armor? Well, you've got to look at where they came from. Most silent achievers were absolutely not born this way. This kind of intense focus, it's forged. When a child experiences early-stage independence, or what a major study in the Journal of Behavioral Development calls healthy social isolation, they develop a hyper-focused internal locus of control. Just imagine a kid who quickly realizes that relying on other people's promises is a totally losing game. Maybe they were the outsider, watching popular kids get praised for doing absolutely nothing. For them, that quiet bedroom wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a psychological incubator. They learned super early on that actions have raw, unbuffered consequences. If you want a result, you got to do it yourself. This creates this deeply embedded self-reliance where they view themselves as the absolute, only reliable guarantor of their success.
Moving on to Section 2, the High-Contingency Mindset.
So how do these silent achievers actually function day to day? Well, because they aren't wasting mental energy worrying about social posturing or what people think of them, they actually have all this excess cognitive bandwidth, and they use it to view the world through the lens of defensive realism. Basically, a silent achiever does not expect the world to be fair, and there is no way they're relying on luck to save them. Instead, they actively build emotional and tactical armor. While the loud alphas are out there prematurely celebrating their first minor victory, assuming everything's going to go perfectly, the silent achiever stays completely grounded. They are hyper-prepared. They literally expect the worst, not because they're pessimistic, but as a highly calculated strategic baseline.
You can actually see this defensive realism in action through a really methodical step-by-step framework. They walk into a situation fully expecting a rug pull. So what do? They build backup plan 1, then backup plan 2, then backup plan 3. And finally, they simulate the complete failure internally. This is exactly why they seem almost eerie at a crisis. When everything completely goes to hell and the loud people in the room are absolutely panicking, the silent achiever just kind of smiles internally. They aren't surprised at all. Why? Because they already simulated this exact disaster in their head like 3 months ago.
Which brings us to Section 3, the privacy shield.
Now, for most people, keeping a secret is really hard. But for a silent achiever, privacy is a non-negotiable survival strategy. It's actually designed to help them avoid a psychological trap known as the substitution effect. See, when you announce your big goals to the world, your brain gets a massive hit of dopamine. It literally tricks you into feeling the satisfaction of the achievement before you've actually done a single ounce of the hard work. This is exactly why loud people get so addicted to the praise of the promise. But the silent achiever, they reject this entirely. They rely on actual, tangible results to validate their reality, completely bypassing the cheap dopamine of telling people what they're going to do.
And this strategy is driven by a fairly dark core philosophy. Visibility equals vulnerability. I know it sounds a bit intense, but it makes perfect sense. Think about it. If the competition knows your next move, they can block it. If your critics know what you're passionate about, they can weaponize it against you. By keeping their ambitions completely invisible, they basically deny the world the chance to doubt them or sabotage them. They are operating in full stealth mode, protecting their goals behind an absolute, impenetrable wall of silence.
Let's dive into Section 4, the Competence Paradox.
When these folks are navigating traditional environments, like your classic corporate workplace, their detachment from traditional authority is honestly something to behold. They kind of view the world in two very different buckets. Over on one side, you have corporate hierarchy.
To a silent achiever, job titles, company praise, and social status, those are just temporary illusions. If you're a CEO who got there through nepotism or just by being the loudest voice in the room, they will nod politely, look you dead in the eye, and completely dismiss your intellect internally. But look at the other side, raw competence. If you are a master of your craft, even if you are sitting at the absolute bottom of the corporate ladder, they will study you like a textbook. They have this fierce, obsessive loyalty to absolute mastery.
And the really crucial point here is how they achieve that mastery, which cognitive psychologists actually call deeper encoding. Because silent achievers invest literally thousands of hours in deliberate, quiet practice without constantly looking up for a pat on the back. Their knowledge becomes permanently integrated into their psychology. They don't just learn how to do a job so they can collect a paycheck. No, they master the underlying physics of it. Their skill becomes a permanent, undeniable fixture of who they are.
But let's just pause for a second here. Take a breath. We've spent this explainer marveling at their extreme efficiency, their strategic minds, their bulletproof preparation. But we really have to ask, is this a perfect existence? Well, the truth is, it's not. And we need to shift gears for a minute to explore a really profound and honestly often overlooked vulnerability that's hidden right behind that quiet exterior. Section 5. The invisible silent toll.
See, the lone wolf lifestyle actually comes with a tremendous internal burden, and clinical data completely backs up this sobering reality. When you look at research on severe burnout, specifically comparing different personality types and how often they seek out social support, silent achievers rank at the absolute bottom. Remember that trained hyper-self-reliance we talked about earlier? Well, during periods of extreme stress, it pretty much borders on chronic anxiety. They have wired themselves so thoroughly to never ever look outward for help that when the pressure finally becomes unbearable, they're essentially trapped by their own design.
It's a really tragic irony. And it's not that they don't have friends or family who care about them. It's just that to a silent achiever, asking for help feels like an admission of absolute defeat. They will carry the massive weight of entire projects, failing businesses, or huge personal crises completely alone. To the rest of the world, they maintain this perfectly calm, laser-focused exterior. But inside, they are bleeding out. They refuse to send up a flare for help simply because it violates their absolute most foundational rule of self-reliance.
But, despite the toll it takes, they continue to operate this way because they understand a fundamental rule of human nature. Thunder is loud, but it's the lightning that does the damage. True power just doesn't need to make noise. Silent achievers operate in the shadows, taking the hits, doing the absolutely grueling work out of sight, simply so they can own the light when the time comes. They really don't care if you notice them today, because they are building something so undeniably competent that they will force you to witness their results tomorrow.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The silent achiever is really the bridge between strategy and reality. They aren't necessarily better than the loud extroverts, but their approach undeniably holds a massive hidden power. So I'm going to leave you with this. If they are the lightning, what are you building in the silence? Think of it as a challenge to reflect on your own working style. Are you addicted to the thunder of the promise, or are you quietly doing the work to become the lightning? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I highly encourage you to take that question with you as you go about your week. Keep learning, keep building, and I'll see you next time.